So the Pixel 10a just launched. I'm a Pixel guy, so I was very excited about checking it out, which I got to do in New York last week. But here's the problem. I came away more confused than anything else. I think Google has made multiple mistakes with the Pixel 10a to the point that I don't even know if I can recommend it to people. So, to help explain what's happening here, I've broken this video down into 3 sections: what Google got right, what Google got wrong, and what I think you should do if you are looking forward to buying the Pixel 10a. Let's start with the good stuff. The thing I think Google got most right with the Pixel 10a is the design. Now, I know this looks just like the Pixel 9a as far as its core design aesthetic goes, but there are some significant changes. First, and most obviously, there are brand new colors this year, and I love them all. There's Fog, which is a subtle green, but also kind of a grayish off-white color. Lavender, which is a nice light blue, kind of like a lighter shade of the indigo color we saw on the Pixel 10 last year. Berry, which is my absolute favorite with its reddish, pinkish tone that looks really classy. And Obsidian, which is the typical dark gray color we've seen with all Pixels for a long time now. To me, these colors are home runs, all of them. I love that Google is giving plenty of options here, and I love that they are not all boring. I'm so tired of monotonous colorway options that are just riffs on gray. Google brought some vibrance this year, and I'm super into it. Outside of the colors, the design is subtly different from the Pixel 9a in ways that you wouldn't notice immediately. It's a little more squat than the Pixel 9a, which makes it a little easier to use, in my opinion. It's also slightly lighter, which is nice, and the camera module on the back is totally flush with the back of the phone, which I really like. It's also made of more recycled material than any other Pixel A series phone, which, hey, I'm not going to complain about. Google also made the phone more durable. Almost every A-series Pixel ever made has had Corning's Gorilla Glass 3 on the front, but the Pixel 10a finally upgrades that to Gorilla Glass 7i, which is much more durable and scratch resistant. The back is still plastic though, but I think plastic can be better than glass in many ways. It's one less thing to potentially shatter if you drop your phone. Google also ported over an important hardware feature from the other Pixel 10 phones, which is the modem. The Pixel 10a has the Exynos modem 5400, which is better than the 5300 that the Pixel 9a had. However, don't assume that means all the hardware from the Pixel 10 made its way to the Pixel 10a, but I'll get to that in a bit. Oh, and just in case you were wondering, the Pixel 10a has a physical SIM card slot, unlike the rest of the Pixel 10 series here in the United States. So, you eSIM haters out there will be happy. Anyway, the phone still looks remarkably similar to the Pixel 9a. I have no illusions about that. But I think the new colors, the new glass, the new modem, and subtle design tweaks were all great moves. The second thing Google did right was to port over a lot of the software features of the Pixel 10 series, including, and this is a big deal, AirDrop support. That's right, with the Pixel 10a, you'll be able to AirDrop things to Apple products or even have Apple users AirDrop things to you, just like you can do on mainline Pixel 9 and Pixel 10 phones. That makes the Pixel 10a the least expensive phone you can get with that capability. Outside of AirDrop, the Pixel 10a also supports many AI features, including Camera Coach and Auto Best Take, both of which were previously available only on mainline Pixel 10 phones. Of course, the phone also supports all the Pixel exclusive features you expect, like Hold for Me, Call Screen, and many more. I have a video up here going over my favorite Pixel exclusive features, so give that a watch if you're interested in learning more about what Pixels can do that most other phones can't. The third and final thing Google got right with the Pixel 10a is the price. Just like last year and the year before that, the Pixel 10a starts at $499. Considering we're in the middle of a hardware crisis with wild RAM and SSD shortages, it's great that Google kept the price the same. This is now the most cost-effective way to get into the Pixel ecosystem without needing to find a discount or go with a phone from the previous year. Okay, it's time to get into what Google got wrong. Before I start though, let me just give a quick reminder that I have a Discord now. I'd love to know what you think about the Pixel 10a, and I'm sure the other members there will be talking about it all week, so come and join the fun. The Discord link is in this video's description. The thing that Google truly messed up about the Pixel 10a is that it seems to have forgotten to upgrade any specs from the Pixel 9a. This includes the processor. That's right. The Pixel 10a has Tensor G4, just like the Pixel 9a. It doesn't end there. It has the same battery capacity, the same RAM count, the same cameras, all 3 cameras, the same storage option. Honestly, it's hard to find much that's different at all. Tensor G4, though, is the biggest head scratcher. Since the first Tensor processor landed in 2021 with the Pixel 6 series, every A series phone has had the same processor as the mainline series it's connected to. This is the first time ever that we're seeing Google bring a year-old processor to its newest A series phone. For most people, this isn't a big deal. The target audience for this phone doesn't even know what processor it has because they simply don't care. However, from where I'm standing, skipping Tensor G5 for this phone fundamentally alters the whole concept of A-series Pixel phones. Since the Pixel 6 series, the A-series phones have always been flagship guts on the cheap. The idea was to give you the core experience of an expensive Pixel flagship, but with the right corners cut to keep the price low. With Tensor G4 in the Pixel 10a, that whole idea has gone out the window. This isn't a phone that offers the core Pixel 10 experience with a lower price. It's just a slightly improved version of the Pixel 9a. Fundamentally, that's an alarming change to the whole idea of what the A-series phones are. Now, don't get me wrong, Tensor G4 is a fine processor. It's the same chip we saw in the Pixel 9 series, and I had no issues using that for the full year I had it as my daily driver. But that was the first year of its existence. The processor in the Pixel 10a is already a year behind before you've even taken it out of the box. If you want to use that phone for a long time, there are inevitably going to be future software features that it just won't support. If it came with Tensor G5, that wouldn't be as much of a concern. But it doesn't. Really though, what irks me the most about all this is that without a new processor, and 90% of the specs being the same across the Pixel 10a and the Pixel 9a, why should anyone buy the Pixel 10a over last year's option? Some new colors and some new glass are nice, don't get me wrong, but that's just not enough. What's so frustrating is that Google had the perfect feature to bring to the Pixel 10a to differentiate it from the 9a, which is Pixel Snap. This is the magnetic ring on the back of all the mainline Pixel 10 phones that's basically the Pixel version of Apple's MagSafe. The Pixel 10a does not have Pixel Snap. It is now the only 10 series phone without it. Honestly, I don't know how Google dropped this ball. If it brought Pixel Snap to the Pixel 10a, that would have been it. That would have been enough for me to say, yeah, this is a good upgrade. The fact that it's not there is actually kind of upsetting for me. Now, I do want to point out that there are some very subtle upgrades here. I need to give Google credit. It did make charging faster, both with a cable and wirelessly. The display is also a teensy bit brighter. Here in the United States, there's also satellite messaging support, a first for any A-series Pixel phone. Obviously, since the phone is a 2026 model, it's going to get an extra year of software updates too, when compared to the Pixel 9a. But yeah, other than those minor upgrades, one of which only applies to this one country, there's pretty much no significant difference between this year's model and last year's. So that brings me to the third section of this video, which is what should you do about the Pixel 10a? Honestly, I haven't had the chance to fully review it yet, so I can't say how good it is or how the camera stacks up or what the battery life is like or anything like that. I will do that soon though, so subscribe if you're interested. What I can say is that based on what I know about the Pixel 10a so far, there is no logical reason to get the Pixel 10a over the Pixel 9a. They are basically the same phone, barring a few minor spec bumps and some new design tweaks. But now that the Pixel 10a is here, the Pixel 9a will come way down in price. If someone were to ask me if they should spend $500 on the Pixel 10a or spend $400 on the Pixel 9a, I would immediately tell them to save their money and get the Pixel 9a. There just aren't enough differences between them, and the few quality of life improvements present on the Pixel 10a are not at all worth spending $100 more. Even if you are okay spending $500 on a phone, why not try to find a great deal on the Pixel 10 instead? That will have better specs across the board, and it's super easy to find great deals on it now that it's about 6 months old. Hell, the Pixel 10's telephoto lens, Tensor G5, and Pixel Snap support are enough to warrant hunting for a deal on the Pixel 10. Those are all significant improvements over the Pixel 10a that you will absolutely notice not only as you first start using the phone, but years later when you're still using it and relying on those features. So yeah, I am not impressed with the Pixel 10a so far. I'm excited to test it out and do a more in-depth review of it, but for right now, it seems like Google forgot it needed to launch a new Pixel, woke up in the middle of the night, and scrambled this together in a few days. It's just not enough. What I think Google should have done here is skip this release entirely. Google won't admit it publicly, but the most likely reason for this weird release is the RAM and SSD crisis I mentioned earlier. Google needed to contend with that, but still keep the phone under $500 and compete with the iPhone 17e, which is probably coming out soon. So it was kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. However, what it could have done is said, we're not releasing a 10a this year, and instead we're going to permanently discount the Pixel 9a and give it an extra year of software support. That would have been a win-win situation. It would be a win for consumers, a win for the environment, and a win for Google, who would get to look like a hero. But instead, we have the Pixel 10a, which is the exact opposite of a win-win. Anyway, jump down in the comments and let me know what you think. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on the Pixel 10a. Before you go, don't forget to like and subscribe, as that really helps out young channels like mine. Also, give a look at this video here, which goes over why the Pixel 8 Pro from a few years ago might be the best bang for your buck flagship around. I'll see you all down in the comments.